Hello, welcome to the first virtual Wheelbarrow Series class, which probably likely to have a lot of these in the next few weeks. Hopefully we'll get this COVID-19 knocked down and we can get back to normal. But until then, we're going to try to do these virtually. Originally, I'd planned to do a Facebook Live video like some of the demos that we've been doing, but I don't think that you can see the slides well for that. So this PowerPoint does allow us to do a video, so we're going to do it that way. Where you can see the PowerPoint slide while I talk. First off, a little overview of asparagus. The United States is a net importer of asparagus, most of that coming from Mexico. That's how we get asparagus in the middle of winter. The annual average consumption is about a pound a person. I don't know about you, but I can eat a pound a week, so some people are not eating their share, I guess. There's about 3.3 million pounds consumed by Kentucky alone, which would be about 1,000 acres if we were to grow all that ourselves. We only have about 80 acres of commercial production in Kentucky, so there is some options there for some people that wanted to get into a commercial production for asparagus. As far as nutrition, it is a very nutritious vegetable, like most of our vegetables are, but it is high in vitamin A and C, good riboflavin, niacin, thiamine, phosphorus, potassium, which are all really good for us, which we know that the more vegetables we eat, the healthier we'll be. It's also very high in glutathione, one of the body's best cancer fighters, and in rutin, which strengthens blood vessels. So if you want to be healthy, you need to eat some more asparagus, especially if you're genetically prone to cancer. Fruits and vegetables are really healthy for us to do that. You can also see on the nutrition facts there, 5 spears of asparagus is only 25 calories, so it's also a very low calorie food. So it's dense in nutrients and low in calories, which is what we're looking for. Before you start, your plants can produce a good crop for 15 to 20 years. So you need to choose a site that you'll be able to let them be perennials. These are not plants that go in the vegetable garden. They need to be in their own bed where they can come back year after year. On the edge of the garden somewhere that does not interfere with the garden tillage or management's good, next to a fence. You can do straight rows out in the yard where you can mow around it. Any of those are fine. They do need full sun, so make sure that you give them that. Full sun around here is 5 to 6 hours a day. Also, I do recommend, which if any of you all come to the classes, you know that we recommend this every time. Do a soil test. That'll tell us exactly what you need for your soil, exactly what your asparagus plants will need. Also, right now, until further notice, soil tests are free if you own property in Washington County. So there's really no reason for you not to get that tested. Even if you have to plant these now, still go ahead and pull a soil test, because for the future we'll know what you need to apply for the next few years. As far as cultivars go, Jersey Night is one of the cultivars that we recommend you plant. Actually, any of the ones with Jersey in their name are really good plants for us. Jersey Night just happens to be a high quality all male hybrid. Males have larger fronds, or spears, so for you to eat. Jersey Night is also resistant to rust. It's also tolerant to fusarium crown and root rot, which we can't have those in our soils around here. Jersey Giant's another one. It's very vigorous. It's a good high yielding, has a good disease resistant package. And then we also have Jersey Supreme. It's also a really good male variety. It does have really good climate adaptation. With our climate, the way it's been fluctuating lately, that's probably a really good one for us too. And it's also rust resistance too. I will say, when these say all males, you will plant them, and inevitably there'll be a couple of females mixed in there, and we'll talk about that more a little bit later in the PowerPoint. Some newer varieties that's been out, or one of the newer varieties, is a Millennium. It is a Canadian variety, which you would think Canadian variety might not be as good here as a more southern variety, but this one actually has got some really promise for us. It can tolerate really cold winters, but it also is a really good performer as far as harvesting later in the season when it warms up. So that's a good option for us. You also notice that the spears have just a little bit of a blush of purple on the tips too. And then one of my favorite varieties of asparagus to eat fresh is Purple Passion. It's not a hybrid, but it grows really well for me. It's very tender, very sweet. It's a good flavor. It's one of the ones that I prefer to eat raw if I'm going to eat some fresh asparagus. I will tell you, if you do cook it, you will lose that purple color. That doesn't matter as far as flavor goes, but some people want to eat colors, so that one's a good one if you want to do that. Onto asparagus production. You can see that nice big spear there. That one's about ready to be cut. You do want to choose a site where asparagus has never been grown, obviously. If they've been there before, then you have a higher chance for some diseases. Also some higher chances for some insects and things that may set in. You do want light to medium well-drained soils, which is kind of hard to get for us, but you can add a little organic matter and get that pretty easily. It's also good, relatively level. You don't want to have any low spots in there where water might stand, and you can get some root rot that way. And also good air drainage, just like with all the other crops that we grow, because you don't want to cause some foliage issues if you don't really have to. We don't really have very many foliage problems around here. That's more of a problem where they grow it in larger fields commercially. As far as planting asparagus, you want your soil temperatures to be around 50 degrees Fahrenheit or higher. Usually for us, that's sometime March to late April. I did include the slide here, which is from today, which is our soil temperature right now. This is late March. And you can see we're around 52 degrees in our area, which is right at the prime planting temperature for us. We just need to dry up a little bit. I also included the link there if you ever want to go to the website and check the ground temperatures. You can do that any time of the year, and they have soil temperatures and things coming in there daily, if not weekly, and then they kind of profile that and tell us what our soil temperatures are. As far as planting, you do want to adjust your pH to around 6.6. Here locally, that's probably our average pH, so it's good to get it checked, but for the most part, they're not real sensitive to pH, but that's pretty close to what our native pH is here. You do want to go ahead and broadcast all your recommended phosphorus and potassium from your soil test, and go ahead and work that into your bed before you get started. If you're not going to do a soil test, remember, still recommend that you do, but if you don't, you can use 10-10-10 at about 1.5 pounds to 2 pounds, 100 square feet. That'll cover your bases if you don't really know what you've got. And also, you'll see in some publications by some universities they recommend to add additional calcium or lime to your planting furrow, about 0.5 pound per 100 square feet of row. That's not really needed in our area. Our calcium usually is really high. Matter of fact, a lot of times it's too high to even try to grow some of our crops that we love, like blueberries. But if you want to hedge your bets, go ahead and throw some in there. It's not going to hurt the plant at all. In this picture here, you can just see that these are the crowns that you'll be getting in your class. Kind of like little spiders, but you can see the root systems are already pretty well developed. And if you look closely there on the picture on the left, you can even see a little spear starting to grow up out of that. So here we got a picture of a furrow that we're going to dig. So you're going to use a shovel or a plow to dig you a furrow. You want the planting depth to be anywhere from 4 to 6 inches, depends on what you want. One thing though, keep in mind, if you plant shallow, you're going to get smaller in diameter spears. Some people really like that. If you plant a little deeper, you're going to get the fatter, bigger spears. It doesn't matter. You can get the same yield over a season, but it's just your personal preferences there. I will tell you these new varieties are going to have a lot thicker, bigger spears than some of the old heirloom varieties that some of you may be used to. Here's the crowns just spaced out in your furrow. These are 1-year-old crowns, which is generally what we plant. If you do want to plant an acre, that's about 5,000 to 6,000 crowns per acre. It's quite a few plants. You do want to separate your crowns when you plant them, the smaller ones together and the bigger ones together. If you intermingle them or commingle them, you may get some larger plants to smother some of the smaller plants out. So you just want to try to give them the best shot they've got. You want to plant them about 16 to 18 inches apart in rows, 5 to 6 inches or 5 to 6 feet apart. You do want to make sure you get plenty of room between them, especially if you're going to have sod or turf around them. You want to give you plenty of room to mow and stuff where you don't have to brush against the plants, or you don't have to be brushed against the foliage and things whenever you mow. I would recommend though that you use wider spacing if you plant male hybrids, because they are a little bigger plants. A few inches is not going to hurt, just to give them a little extra room. Your furrow should be wide enough to spread your roots out. That way you want to make a little hump in your furrow, and then you can spread the roots out of that. Make sure you get your roots spread where they're all growing all directions. You want to cover your transplant or your crown with 1 inch of soil. Remember, we're planting these down 4 to 6 inches deep, and then we're going to only cover them about 1 inch deep. So as it grows, we're going to add our soil back over that crown until we get it up to the soil surface where it was originally. So it's kind of like planting them in a little ditch and then filling them back up as they grow. I guess you can think of it like healing potatoes that way, except we're starting these out lower and then pulling the soil back around. As far as weed control, always do use mulch. It's going to be your best friend, your best help in all this. The first year or two, you're probably going to have to use mechanical controls, hand weeding. You can also put preen down after you plant these. One thing to remember, once you have your soil after your first this spring, and you've got your soil surface back up to where it was, and these plants are growing up, you can go ahead and put mulch around them this year. I definitely would use a thick layer of mulch every year after that, because they'll come up through several inches of mulch and won't cause the plant any trouble at all. Just keep in mind, if you do have to till around, it's not recommended, but if you have to, make sure that it's shallow. I don't like to hoe a lot around these plants either once they're in the ground. Another option is if you have a really weedy bed, before the plants break dormancy in the spring, you can actually spray Roundup over the bed and kill those existing cool season weeds and things that are growing on that bed. It's because as long as those spears are not sticking through the soil, the Roundup won't contact them and won't hurt the plants. Fertilizing, you want to top dress annually with about 1/2 pound of urea per 100 square feet. In spring, you want to do that before your spear emergence, so if you've got an existing bed, go ahead and do that. And then you want to top dress your second application with about 1/2 pound of urea per 100 square feet after your last harvest, but before fern development. So whenever your spears get down to the pencil size, and we'll talk about that just a little bit in a minute, that's whenever you want to stop harvesting and go ahead and do that last application of fertilizer. So your spears will be produced from expanding buds on the crown. As the spears elongate and reach about 8 to 9 inches, the tips will open. That's whenever we're getting an over mature, and I'll show you a picture in a minute. The spear will become woody at the bottom, which is good. That's going to help hold up the fern. Also, the ferns will produce food. So after you've stopped harvesting, you've got to let those fronds grow full size, because they're making the food for the next year's production. Like last year, if you had an asparagus bed, if you didn't water them, you're probably going to have a lower harvest this season than what you had last year. So we've got to keep these plants healthy during the growing season. That way we get that nice big production in the spring. So you're going to get no harvesting your planting year, obviously, because these plants got to get started and they're going to be small. And then after the first harvest year actually will be next spring. So you'll get maybe 5 to 6 spears per plant. And you want to harvest them when they're about 5 to 10 inches long. And then by the third year, you're going to be able to harvest for up to 2 months, depending on how healthy your plants were. And then you're going to allow your maximum fern growth and water 1 inch per week, July through August, to make sure that you're putting as much food back in that root system as you can get. And then as far as harvesting, the general rule is the first year is 2 weeks. That's the first harvest year. The second harvest year, 4 weeks, and then the third harvest year, and so on. You'll maybe get 6 to 8 weeks. Another one, if you don't want to go by weeks, it's just whenever your spears coming through the ground are the size of a pencil, you need to stop. That means the plant's losing some vigor and needs to go ahead and let it grow its fronds and put some food back into the root system for the following growing season. So 66% of your yield is usually going to occur during the first half of the season in the cooler weather, and then they harvest the other during warm weather, or harvest every other day during warm weather. About 80 degrees is going to have to make you check that. Twice a week during cool weather. Just keep that in mind. When it warms up, these plants will grow pretty fast. Harvesting the day is the best time, because that's when they're going to be the freshest. Also, asparagus should be cut clean between harvests. Fern development will delay spear emergence, so just keep that in mind. If you let them grow too much and then you cut them back, you're going to get less fronds coming through the ground. We call that apical dominance. But if you let one spear get really big, and you don't go ahead and cut it down, you're going to get less coming through the ground. So if it does get away from you, go ahead and cut it back, and that'll push some new spears up out of the ground that you can then harvest. You do want to, again, stop harvest when about half the spears are smaller than a pencil. That's 3/8 of an inch. So that's just that plant telling you that it's using a lot of its resources, and you need to go ahead and give it a shot to put some food back into the root system. So when to harvest, that's kind of hard to see there. So if you look at that on the left there, that's a mature tight head. Those are ready to harvest. And then you look on the other side there on the right, over mature spears there, you can kind of see the little leaves starting to form in the plant. It's not a tight spear anymore. That's whenever it's over mature. If you're during the growing season or harvesting season and some get away from you with that, I would still go ahead and break those out and maybe force some new shoots to come up through the ground. Another thing is asparagus is dioecious, which doesn't mean a lot to most people, but that just means we have male and female plants. And those male and female plants are fine. You can harvest the spears from any of them. But generally speaking, the male plants will produce larger spears. The female plants will produce smaller spears. You can also see up there at the top, the female spear there has little berries on it that let you know that that's a female. People sometimes don't want female plants because those seeds do germinate and you can end up with asparagus weeds, so to speak. You'll see asparagus periodically in fence rows and things, and that's from the birds eating those seeds and dropping those seeds in those fence rows. It's not going to hurt anything, but it's just to let you know that there are two different types of plants there. So here we have the ferns. The leaves of the asparagus plant are called the ferns. You don't want to cut this fern growth down. I mean, you do want to at the end of the season, unless there's an insect or disease problem. You can leave it up. Ferns stay green until frost produces food for next year's spears. So, do not cut them down early. Wait until we get a freeze to knock them down. And then if you want, you can leave the dead fronds up during the winter, or you can take them down. It's totally up to you. In places where they have really bad winters, they leave them up because it keeps the temperature cooler in the spring and keeps them from growing a little too soon and maybe getting killed by a late frost or freeze. Here, I usually wait until they're dead, and maybe in midwinter, late winter, I'll just go out there with a lawnmower and mow them down, and that takes care of that. As far as handling your asparagus after harvest, when you do want to wash your asparagus immediately when you come in. I should have put a picture in there of this, but one thing, if you hold that spear up to the light and you see little specks on the sides of the spear that look like little pieces of black pepper, those are asparagus beetle eggs. So you do want to wash those off. I know a lot of people don't even notice those, and I'm sure a lot of us have eaten them through the years, but it's good to go ahead and wash those off, especially if you've got an asparagus bed that's got some age on it. You've definitely had some asparagus beetles, and they'll let you know that they're there, and you can wash those off. Also, if your fronds are coming up through the ground and they get a crook on the ends of them, like a candy cane, a lot of times that's a sign that you do have asparagus beetle feeding on those fronds, so you do definitely want to start washing those and harvest them pretty regular where you don't get many eggs deposited on those before you take them in, because the little specks don't wash off easily. After you wash your asparagus, you do want to pat it dry. Then you can cool your asparagus quickly. That's going to allow it to last longer fresh. Obviously, most of us are going to have our refrigerator between 32 and 36, but if you can get it that cool, they'll keep longer. Usually in the crisper in the fridge, though, they'll keep a couple weeks, as long as you keep them in the little perforated bags. And we do say perforated bags because that just lets them breathe a little bit, but it also keeps the humidity high. You can just take a Ziploc, just leave the top open a little bit and stick it down in the crisper, and you'll be fine that way. If you have any questions about growing asparagus, you can give us a call here at the office, or you can put comments in the sections here on Facebook. I'm also going to upload this to our YouTube channel, which we've put that out there, and I'll probably put a link when I load this to Facebook. As far as asparagus beetle, I should have mentioned that more. That's going to be your really only trouble you're going to have here in Kentucky growing asparagus. So definitely what you want to do is, if you start to see your fronds getting eaten back, you're going to want to spray those, because again, if you don't keep your fronds up during the summer, you won't get a good harvest come next spring. 7 works fine on those. Malathion works good on those. If you want to do something more organic, you can try insecticidal soap. Those are just a few of the things that we can use. So again, if you have any questions, give me a call. We'll be here at the office through this until we get through the pandemic. Also, for those that signed up for plants, you can pick those up behind the office under the covering. We'll have them already bagged up for you, and we'll have the PowerPoint there for you, and then you can just take your plants and do that. Now, I will have extra plants, so if anybody wants to buy extra plants, we're going to sell them 10 for $10. So if you signed up for the class and you got 10 plants and you want another 10, just give us a call. Let me know. If you didn't sign up for the class and you would like to get a bundle and get this PowerPoint, also let me know. You can call the office or put comments in the comment section on Facebook, and we'll get with you, or you can give us a phone call. It'll probably be easier that way, and we can get with you to get your plants to you. We're also going to put in some asparagus recipe cards for you. That way, next year, whenever you get to harvest a little bit of this asparagus, you can have some recipes. But you can also buy your some asparagus this year and use these recipes. They'll be really good. Again, if you have any questions, give us a call here at the office at 859-336-7741. Happy gardening.